Flying hoverboards, dinosaur attacks, and spinning hallways, all on today's amazing effects, but can you guess how the effect was done before we tell you? As always, I'm going to show you a clip, and you're going to have to try to figure out how they did the effect at the time it was made.
Okay, I'll do my best.
Anything new?
No, that's the whole thing.
Okay, so then I kiss, and press play.
Correct.
Pressing play.
That's almost 100 years ago.
There's a lot of phallic things going on right now.
Sometimes you're not even smart enough to verbalize what you think they did and pulled off.
Careful with your hand, buddy.
It's not really about feeling inferior. It's more of like, that's just superior thinking.
My guess is that the tiny people are on a big set of their own where like the pipe is big, the book is big. I have no idea how they mixed the two though, like how he picked them up. I don't even have a guess. I just don't know.
So I think they just shot the actors within the glass tubes, and then in the wide frame of the white guy at the desk, they just shrunk down the people and put them in the glass frame.
This effect of tiny people trapped in jars is one of those moments that's way more clever than it has any right to be for 1935. And it all comes down to optical compositing and props. It started with the plate of the man standing in his lap. Then the actors playing the little people were shot separately against a black background. Those isolated shots were matted and composited into footage of the large-scale bottles using high contrast matting techniques of that era. And that's what let them drop the tiny performers right into the lab. And because they performed on that dark stage, the footage could be optically combined into the jars while keeping the background behind the glass still visible. So you're seeing through the bottle, which sells the whole thing. And to push it even further, they used oversized props like giant bottles and tables to create that contrast that makes the actors read as tiny. Then it all came down to precision, carefully calculating camera height, angle, and distance so the composited figures match the lighting and perspective of the main set.
I mean, it's kind of that like dock handheld, kinetic, frenetic coverage, and then somebody ends up on some sort of crane, you know, getting lifted to the heavens to end. Very impressive. I feel like every modern filmmaker is still kind of recreating a shot like that in their filmography at some point.
Oh, that's not what I was expecting. Damn. There's nothing to guess on here, but that shot is incredible.
This shot isn't an effect, but it's amazing, and an incredibly impressive continuous take that was way ahead of its time, and had a tremendous amount of orchestration from the cast, crew, and extras. The shot starts in the bus with the lead before moving out and through the crowd, and then handing off to a crane, then rising above the scene, revealing the scale. And that mix of handheld and crane creates what you could call a free camera technique, and that was wildly uncommon for the 1950s. It let the camera move dynamically with the characters, and gave the whole thing this sense of immediacy and immersion that you'd later see echoed in films like Children of Men, creating a little domino effect through film history. Another shot from that same film, which is far more of an effect, is this continuous staircase sequence, which blew my mind for 1957. My first guess on how they did it was an unmanned platform that pulled the camera up from above, but it's much cooler than that. To follow the actor up like they did here, they built a custom camera lift, which was a platform mounted on a vertical mast that carried the cinematographer and the lighting up in sync with the actor's ascent, letting the shot just keep climbing without interruption. And the DP's background as a war documentarian influenced moments like this and the other that we showed you all throughout the film. We're about to jump into Back to the Future 2 and hoverboards, but before we do, let's thank today's sponsor, Epidemic Sound. The thing that kills a project faster than bad lighting is the wrong music, and finding the right music is genuinely one of the hardest parts of making anything. For me, it usually goes like this. I hear a track, I think that's perfect, I download it, drag it into the timeline, and it doesn't work at all. Then I do that again, and suddenly an hour's gone. That's where today's sponsor, Epidemic Sound, is a big help, especially their panel that lives inside of Premiere. So instead of the whole download, find the folder, import dance, I can just search, audition a track against the actual footage, and if it's not working, move on immediately. And a ton of these tracks have stems, so if a song almost works other than a sound or two, I can pull that element out, drop the rest in, and shape it how I want. They also have a ton of tracks made by real artists, so you're supporting actual musicians, and a massive amount of sound effects, which is another huge advantage since it's right there in the panel. So I can find the swoosh sound I need, toss it in, and move on. And the music is restriction free. All rights are included, so I can publish anywhere and not worry about a copyright claim pulling the video or eating revenue. So if hunting for music is eating your editing time, click the link in the description and use code FilmRiot at checkout to get 50% off Epidemic Sound for 2 months, and that offer is only good until July 15th, so don't wait.
He's like a warm hug.
There's like bullies from Blade Runner franchise here.
They gotta be just on wires.
When the stunt team is on the boards, hovering off the ground, I just think they're on wires stuck to the boards, so they're off the ground.
My guess would be for the wide shots, they're on just like a wire rig.
Back to the Future 2, which feels uncomfortably accurate for today, but not in the tech. We still don't have hoverboards, but neither did they. So the way that they pulled this effect off was a combination of wire suspension rigs, cranes, and some carefully designed sets. The actors wore harnesses attached to cables that let them fly above the set and to sell that smooth glide across the ground. And they used Velcro on the actors' feet to keep the boards locked to them. For the close-up, a platform dolly attached to a truck moved the actors while they appeared to float, with the camera positioned low to hide the mechanism. Then for any shot where the hoverboards got thrown or seemed to fly on their own, those were puppeteered using wire-controlled props, and the more complex, high-flying stuff was handed off to stunt doubles, which you can see them testing out that technique in this old footage here. Another bit of tech I wish we had now, but we do not, is the self-adjusting jacket and those self-lacing sneakers. And this is just hilariously simple and awesome. The jacket was a practical effect using thin wires attached to different sections of the material. And off camera, a crew of like 4 or 5 people laid on the ground and pulled those wires in sync to create that tightening motion. And that same wire technique is what gave Marty's Nikes their power laces.
Oh, okay, here we go.
Well, that's a bad time.
I feel like this is like all the homeschool parents that have those big vans and a ton of kids. Get on your school bus, offspring. That's the kind of kisser I am. It's gonna take your upper lip right off.
Did he just get Dino taken advantage of? Bro, call the police.
I'm gonna say most of it was practical little RC car vibe, puppeteer, robotic little dinos.
Yeah, so the first shot, CG as they attack, and then once it cuts in, those are all, they look practical. Like they're pretty obviously practical.
The compies are the first dinosaurs we see in the Lost World film, and while they were computer animated in some shots, the attack on the hunter was pulled off almost entirely with practical puppets. Stan Winston's studio actually built a dozen compy puppets across 4 different types to get a whole range of behaviors for the scene. The first type was attached right to the actor with Velcro and rigged with lines of high strength, low stretch material, all connected to a controller. So by pulling on that controller, the puppeteer could create this pecking motion. Another type had high-powered magnets on its feet that locked onto other magnets sewn into the actor's clothing. And that's what let the character grab the compy and pull them away. And those compies had little springs to give their necks subtle movement. Then you have the hero compies, which were way more advanced. These were mechanized with servos for full head movement, plus pneumatic eye blinks and tail motion. And the main featured hero compy had all of that, along with fully articulated arms that could actually grab the actor during the attack. It's a bit dated by today's standards, but oozing with genius even still. And this same effect got used again the very next year in Small Soldiers.
Dude, this movie scared the shit out of me as a kid. I was like, this is what's gonna happen to me.
This is Sid from Toy Story's first girlfriend when she comes over.
The one on the right.
Some of those feel puppeteered on wires.
My guess would be CG and some puppets.
Yeah, I think Geppetto's right above Kirsten Dunst, just doing some bullshit.
Small Soldiers blends practical puppetry with some advanced CGI for its time, building on the same kind of techniques Joe Dante explored back in Gremlins, but this time applied to toys and pushed further with newer digital tech. Industrial Light and Magic developed new scanning tools and software that let their digital artists create super accurate 3D scans of the film's puppets, which gave a very close match between the CG and practical versions of the characters. Those high-res scans took up a ton of storage, so each piece of a CG character character had to be saved as its own separate file, then reassembled during compositing. Each digital character took 9 modelers and somewhere between 3 and 6 weeks to finish, with the most complex one, Frankenstein, taking a full 3 months. And the finished film ended up with over 200 CGI shots blended into the live action and practical effects. But the practical side carried just as much weight. Stan Winston Studios built more than 200 animatronic puppets representing 14 characters. The puppets came in 3 forms: rod-operated versions for close-ups, cable-controlled ones for the complex movement, and battery-powered for autonomous facial animation. Those battery-powered versions ended up being the go-to, using tiny servo motors in the head for independent facial expressions, while the arms and legs got animated with stop-motion techniques. And the scale of all of this was kind of insane. 375 pounds of clay went into sculpting maquettes. 400 molds were created. The puppets needed 3,500 feet of electric wire, and 103 microprocessors were controlling the animatronics. Movement in the big scenes was managed by 34 radio transmitters and 72 receivers. And for the major battle sequence, 186 puppeteers worked at the same time across 52 radio frequencies. At any given moment, you'd have somewhere between 14 and 23 puppeteers operating the characters, backed by a team of 50 artists and technicians just handling puppet construction. And like I mentioned before, they did use the same technique as The Lost World in the attack involving the Gwendy dolls. They used that same high strength and low stretch lines, which were threaded through bicycle derailleur cable housing and run beneath neoprene suit worn by Kirsten Dunst. Pads on the suit allowed the Gwendy dolls to be attached, while the neoprene concealed the lines. The film is just loaded with so much work, ingenuity, and love that it's kind of tragic that it went on to not be a hit or really remembered very much in the cultural sphere.
I literally just watched this.
I wouldn't say it's every actor's dream, but if I was an actor, I would love to act in a sequence like this because you just get to do it for real.
Everybody's gonna be like, yeah, we know how they did this.
Nolan just built this little tunnel and spun it around because he's Christopher Nolan. He gets what he wants, you know what I mean?
Yeah, they're just in that actual physical spinning tube.
This spinning hallway effect is definitely a famous one, but also one of my favorites of the last 20 years. And the idea was definitely inspired by an amazing anime called Paprika, even though Nolan has never confirmed that. But this all came down to building a massive rotating gimbal set inside a blimp hangar. They constructed a 100-foot hallway that could rotate a full 360 degrees, and the actors trained for weeks just to perform inside that spinning environment and keep their movement controlled and fluid. The cameras were secured directly to the set, some of them tucked right into the grooves of the carpet, so the camera would rotate right along with the hallway. They used a bunch of different rigs for this, including rotating rooms, vertical hallways with wire support for the suspension stunts, and some specialized camera rigging. And to really sell that zero gravity illusion, they even attached objects in the room to wires and made them float for that extra bit of detail. This one has nothing to guess at because it's not really an effect, but it is an industrial light and magic animated film, which sounds like a great idea, and it was, especially with Roger Deakins serving as visual consultant, which is why the lighting is so amazing. But the reason I wanted to talk about this is the unique approach they took in production, which they described as emotion capture. Instead of doing the usual process, where an actor is isolated in a booth playing off only the director, actors perform their scenes all together as they would making a live-action film. The behind the scenes sort of looks like a quirky theater troupe having a blast, and all the dialogue recorded this way absolutely added a lot of life and the ability to ad-lib and shift ideas on the fly, again, as you would with any live-action production. The animators were thrilled about this too, since they now had a treasure trove of references from the actual cast. So instead of the typical method of an animator filming themselves and acting out the motion for reference, they were able to pull that directly from the mannerisms of the actual performer for any given moment. And there's loads of behind the scenes showing them do this, capturing the film while playing, and I think it pays off in the final film. As always, the through line across all of these films isn't some single technological breakthrough, it's a consistent philosophy of illusion rooted in craftsmanship and problem solving. The actors are physically interacting with the effects, wearing rigs, reacting to puppets, performing in moving sets, and that human performance is exactly what sells it.
Now that's what I'm talking about.
But that's it for today. If you want more amazing effects, we've got a playlist in the notes below with all our other episodes, and we just started a brand new channel called Page One and Beyond. It's a new show that takes a deep dive into the elements that make some of our favorite films stand out. If you dig this show, you're gonna love that one, so check the notes for that in the links as well. And until next time, don't forget to write, shoot, edit, repeat.
See you later. Ta-ta.